Sahinavavatu Sahino Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Vichar Chandrodaya Kala 4. I am beyond the 5 sheaths. Question. What is meant by Panchakoshāteeta? Answer. Panchakoshāteeta means I am beyond the 5 sheaths and separate from them. Question. What is meant by kosha, sheath? Answer. Kosha refers to a scabbard of a sword and a treasury of wealth and a caterpillar's cocoon. Just as the above are enveloped by the respective coverings, that is sheaths, 5 sheaths cover the Atman. Thus, Annamaya, etc. are all referred to as the sheaths. Question. What are the names of the 5 kosha? Names of 5 koshas are Annamaya, Prāṇamaya, Manomaya, Vigyānamaya, Ānandamaya. Kosha, as very evidently clear, it means the scabbard of a sword. And when the sword is in the scabbard, you don't see the sword, you see just the scabbard. And it can be a chest where you place your wealth or clothes. You don't see the clothes, but you do see the chest. Or a box, you can say, any wooden box which is holding something inside it. So we see the external body, but we can't see what is inside that. Or the cocoon in which the caterpillar is. When the caterpillar is inside, you can't see it. Now in this case, it is that caterpillar one day will come out of the cocoon, will become a butterfly. That's a different story. But as long as it is in that, you can't see the caterpillar. What you see is just the body of this cocoon. Similarly, the Atman is in these 5 sheaths or scabbards or chest or cocoons, you can understand. So there are 5 sheaths, and one sheath will be more subtler, then the third is further subtler, and this goes on. The very visible is the first one, which is called the Annamaya kosha. Anna means food grain. So what is Annamaya kosha? The food eaten by the mother and father provides the nutrition needed for the generation of ova and semen. Their fusion leads to the conception in the womb of the mother. After the child is born, its body derives nutrition from mother's milk and later from food. This ingested milk and food leads to the body's development and growth. After death, the Annamaya kosha merges back with the Prithvi and other elements, and this gross body is the Annamaya kosha. See how beautifully and how scientifically the whole procedure has been explained. There is no drama in it. We have to see that in nature we have the 2 genders happening simultaneously. We have certain species which have both genders in it, but still that 2 genders are always there. It's always a pair. It's never a single. There is nothing called single. Whether you see fishes or all the 4-legged animals or all the flying animals or even the mosquitoes, they come as a male and female. Like the dengue is spread by the female, not the male. Females are more dangerous. Very, very dangerous. And the male is not. Similarly, we have say peacock, the male and the female. So you see every bird, for this we have very beautiful 4 words in which 4 categories every being will get fitted into it. Very nice. We call them Jalchar, Nabhchar, Thalchar. Jalchar, Jal is those who live in water. Nabhchar, those who live in the sky. And the Thalchar, those who live on the earth. And if you see, everything gets fitted into these 3 classifications. So these all beings happen to be in a pair, and when they copulate, their copulation ends into the conception of the female. Now it can be any female, and the male is there to protect. In certain we see that they are, even a lion is very protective, even the birds are very protective, and somehow that is the case of the human beings also, that when a woman is pregnant, the husband feels more responsible for doing that, and somehow that fatherly instincts take over. Like for the mother, these instincts come over, and they are very much going to create a one unit of a family out of this male and female. So the male and the female body is sustained by the food which is eaten by them. And as Ayurveda has already said, that what you eat, that changes into, transforms itself. You eat food, milk, vegetables, stuff, and that gets transformed into rakta, the blood, and then plasma, and then majja, the muscles, the asthi, bones, and all these 7, they're ending up to the semen. 7th is the semen. So this semen in the male body and the ova in the female body, when they unite, that can lead to the conception of the female, and that's how the body is born after 9 months, or 6 or 7 sometimes, or 8. It can be, depending upon various conditions. And once the baby is out, initial it is the mother's milk, where the baby will be supplied by Mother Nature and the mother, the milk, and later on the food. So this ingested milk and food develops that particular body, helps it grow, and once it touches, some say 18, some say 21, and then the derailment of the body actually begins from that day onwards. But it's not very evident and clear until you touch the 50s or 40s. And with all this stress and pollution and all this nonsense happening in our water and food and air, this is now happening much quickly. And actually many people are now dying in their 30s and 40s and 50s. So slowly the age limit in a way is reducing. The quality of life is getting down and down. The strength which your grannies had, you don't have. The strength which you have, your grandchildren don't have. They are just a little cold wind and they are already sniffling. So they're too weak because maybe too much of sedentary lifestyle, maybe too much of pollution, maybe too much of not paying attention to right exercise and sports and games. And children are just with the books all the times or with the TV all the times. And that is playing a havoc on the bodies. And I believe it's a gore injustice being done to all the children who are not being given an opportunity to play in the ground and play in the mud, because that's where they'll gain their immunity, not by sitting in an air-conditioned rooms. And even now schools are air-conditioned, which is pathetic. Yes, we are a hot country, but that doesn't mean that because AC is a home for all the bacteria and viruses. It keeps on growing in this muggy, cold environment where there is no circulation of the air. So children should never be inside. Well, I don't want to digress, so I'll come back. This is the gross body, the Annamaya kosha. And how to keep this body healthy requires you to understand Ayurveda and requires you to understand the Ashtanga Yoga, the Yam Niyam and the Asana Pranayam part. So if you don't, as Swami Buaji used to say, the bodies which rest will rust. Remember that. It's just like iron. If you don't use your door open and close every day, the hinges will get rusted, then they'll get creaky, and then they will not be able to hold it because the rust will eat up that hinge. So we need to keep this hinge oleated. And when you do your asanas, and one of the very important ritual of the yoga asanas, those who are sincere, is that you do your self-massage maybe twice a week at least, and those who have time can do it maybe every day for like 10 minutes, or you do it for twice a week at least, giving 20-25 minutes. And this is the oleation for all the 32 major joints in your body. Because if you don't do that, so right amount of fat should be eaten, right amount of rest should be taken. If you rest too much, that's bad. If you eat too much, that's bad. If you drink too much, that's bad. If you talk too much, that's bad. Anything in excess is bad for this Annamaya kosha. So yoga and Ayurveda are the only two tools which teach you how to manage your body. So if you are not managing your body properly, you are being disrespectful to the body, to the nature which made this, and to Ishvara, who is responsible for this. So I consider doing asana as being in a prayer. So when you are doing asana, it's sheerly nonsense to believe that only when I close the eye and sit with my spine erect, I am doing some meditation. That's not true. When you are doing asanas and you are moving your body with that poise, with that grace, with that understanding, with that attention to every joint and ligament and muscle and bone in your body. Truth is, you are still not getting to that point where your observation is this keen and this astute. So I would add, along with the understanding of practicing the asanas, you do need to understand the anatomy of this Annamaya kosha, this body. Because in lack of knowing what is the anatomy of the body, how will you observe? What is your quadricep muscle? Which is your tricep muscles? Which are your rotator joints? Which are your hinge joints? What are the phalanges in your body? What is the ulna? What is the radial bone? What is the scapula? What is the, all the knots in your spinal bone? The structure of it, if you don't understand, how would you know this is the sacrum, this is the lumbar, this is the thoracic? How would you know that in which asana, which part is being moved and oxygenated? Which is the coccyx? Which are your sitting bones? Now, if you don't know which are your sitting bones, and if you don't know how to keep the balance when you sit on these bones, by just sitting inappropriately, you injure your spine, and when the injury of the spine will actually create a ruckus in your whole system. That's why Swami Buaji, because yesterday we had this International Yoga Day, so we had this beautiful video done in which first time ever, I think so, the world will see the asanas Swamiji practicing himself. And that is another thing which Swamiji used to say, and that is that if you don't understand what you are doing, then it's not asana at all. And if you are not bringing your mind to that particular area of your bone or joint or the skin fascia or the internal organs, that when you are twisting your waist, what is getting twisted inside? The major thing is that whenever, like me and Purnanand were actually, I would say, more fortunate to be with him for many, many times, and in New York, in his apartment, or in Bangalore, or here in ashram. So Swamiji used to point it to Purnanand every time. And he would just do this sign, that's sit erect. Initially he would yell, how are you sitting? Then it was just a sign, and this sign meant sit erect, tall, sit, don't sit with slouched back. And he would make this grunting sound, and then do this. And initially it was so tough because he was not actually very adept at that time. He was still learning his ropes of asanas and everything. And I think so it was 2004, and it was just his beginning. And Swamiji is expecting him to sit 1 in Padmasana and 2 can't move. And we are sitting with him like say 6 hours, 5 hours, 4 hours. And all the 4 hours from the corner of eyes, he's always eyeing him. And sometimes he's talking to me and he would just raise his finger and do this. So the Prāṇamaya kosha is the 5 senses of action and your 5 prāṇas. Now, yoga is not just about doing asanas. Another biggest misconception that yoga is just about to do some contortion and look like a pretzel and move your bodies in that difficult contortions that are, how did this person do it? Now, yoga is not that. Any gymnast can do that better than us. Better than any yogi. I have seen it. Those performers who are called contortionists. They are master of contortions, unbelievable. All the so-called in Bharat we have these some who call themselves great yogis, and the media says they are great yogis. I would love to bring a contortionist and put him on a stage and put that Baba on the stage and say, let's see who does it properly, who will win. And this person will do it with so much poise. That's amazing. Once in New York, I saw this Cirque du Soleil. It performs the circus, and they had this huge show on contortion. I had seen earlier also, but this was just jaw-dropping. Just jaw-dropping. It's such a beautiful. Yoga is not just contorting the body. Yoga is not just about doing these physical feats on the yoga mat. Yoga is all about knowing what these 5 prāṇas are by experience. Prāṇa, Vyāna, Udāna, Samāna, all these 5 prāṇas, how they function, what are the further, the classifications. These prāṇas further have their own classification. Kurma, Dhananjaya, how they function in the body and how they are interrelated with the 5 senses of action. So you cannot be called a yogi if you don't know all this. If you just know how to do asana, maybe I'll call you a gymnast. Somebody in the roadside, that day I saw, on the traffic signal, there was young children. Oh my God, they were doing all the twist and turn, and they had this small ring and they moved through that ring, and they did so many somersaults and did the handstands and did the vrikshasana and everything, and the vrishik pose and everything. Now, will I call them a yogi now? No, we cannot. So yoga means knowing about the prana, their functioning, and having a control on that. And having said that, I wouldn't have been, say it with this much force and conviction if I had not witnessed those yogis who have this kind of control on their body. I'll give again example of Swami Buaji. He could be without food for a month or maybe more. Like when he came from America, he was taken by his son-in-law to Bangalore because his interest was to make an ashram over there. Swamiji had no interest, and Swamiji was asking, Amma, when will we go to Amma? And he wouldn't eat food. And it was almost 4th week when this information came to me that Swamiji is in Bangalore ashram. So I book my seat and I go there to see him, and when I go, and that afternoon he ate after 4 weeks of coming to India, and he never took even a morsel. Food would come, he would put his finger, because it's a disrespect if you don't eat food which has been offered to you. So he would just place his one finger on the food, place that one finger on his lips and say, I'm done. No food. And when I met him, he ate like, oh my God, that was a scene to see. Then we have heard the stories of Durvasa Rishi when all the gopi offered, hundreds of gopis offered him food, and he ate food of all the gopis and never ever belched for a second. Where did this whole food go? So I have seen Swamiji eating like that, and he ate so much and never ever said, oh, my stomach is too heavy. The mastery over the body cannot happen until you know how these 5 pranas function. Now this is a part of yoga, although the Ashtanga yoga, it's not part of the Vedanta, but actually if you are a good practitioner and you begin to seek this knowledge of 5 pranas, obviously amount of dedication and amount of sincerity of work which you'll have to do. Truth is this, then you cannot do anything of samsara at all, because this is going to take years and years to master it, and it might not happen in one lifetime, maybe not. So Vedanta says, now I am saying, and you are just listening, 5 pranas, and oh yes, 5 pranas. But how those 5 pranas are functioning, you have no idea at all. So, how will you disengage yourself from these pranas? To observe, you have to know it first. Say, I am observer of this box, I can see this box, hold this box, smell this box, lick the box, I can taste something, I can see the object, and now I say, I am the subject observing the box. So to be an observer of the 5 pranas, you have to objectify the pranas. So Vedanta actually in a very hidden way brings the asanas and very depth of yoga into it without proclaiming too much. But I believe yoga is the most important part. And Yoga Vasishtha says that how Ramji asks Guru Vasishtha, how can one attain moksha? And Vasishtha says, it's only on the wings, 2 wings of yoga and jnana that somebody can attain the moksha. On one wing, the bird cannot fly. To flap, it needs 2 wings. So for an aspirant who is passionate for the moksha, would need these 2 wings. One is of yoga and one is of the jnana. If you don't have these 2 wings, moksha is a very distant imaginative thing then for you. What are the locations and functions of the 5 pranas? The locations and functions of the 5 pranas are as follows. Prāṇavayu is located in the region of heart. It carries out inhalation and exhalation, 21,600 breaths each day and night. Now these are the normal breathing when you are in anger, in greed, or when you are absent-minded. Then your breath rate could be from 25,000 to 28,000, 30,000, whatnot. So this 21,600 breath is only then when the inhalation is happening at least for 3 seconds and exhalation at least for 3 seconds. If it is happening in lesser time duration, then the figure will be much higher. Apana Vayu is located in the region of anus. It carries out the excretion of urine and feces from the body. I would just like to add, it's not just the anus, but it is the whole large intestine. Samana Vayu, it is located in the region of the umbilicus, and just as the gardener irrigates the garden by channeling the water from the well to the plants, similarly Samana Vayu assimilates all the nutrients from the food eaten, and through the channels of the nadis, it makes this nutrient-rich rasa available to all parts of the body. Udana Vayu, it is located in the region of throat. It separates the ingested food and water. It executes the occurrences of hiccups and dreams. Dreams. Now, how did they say dream? I will not explain it. You will have to find it. Ud means rising upward. Ana means to come. So the prana which rises upward is called the udana. Hence the hiccups, the belching, the blinking of the eyes, and inhalation and the exhalation. So one half is done by the udana and one half of this breathing is done by the prana. Right? Vigyānamaya, it pervades the entire body. It regulates and controls all the movements of the limbs and joints in the body. These are the functions of pranas and their locations in the body. Question. What do the prana and other vāyus do in the body? Pranas and the other vāyus are present in the entire body and act to strengthen it. It is the cosmic life force that enables a respective functioning of all senses. Question. I am distinct from the Prāṇamaya kosha. How does one realize this? The prānas remain awake and continue functioning even when one is asleep. But prana does not make one acknowledge the presence of a loved one if he or she visits while one is sleeping. Even if a thief steals, say some jewelry while one is asleep, prana don't oppose that action either. This shows that prana vayu is as jada, inert, as a clay pot, whereas I am conscious, Chaitanya, and hence distinct from it. Therefore, the Prāṇamaya kosha is not me and not mine. It constitutes the subtle body, and I am the knower, Atman, who is distinct from it. In this manner, we know I am not Prāṇamaya kosha and I are distinct. Question. What is Manomaya kosha? The 5 cognitive senses, along with the mind, constitutes the Manomaya kosha. What are the 5 cognitive senses? Radhika.
Shotra, Tvacha, Chakshu, Jiva or Ghan.
Which are the 5 cognitive senses? Has been mentioned in the description of the subtle body previously. Question. What is the nature of the mind? It is the cause of identification of the self with the gross body. It is the cause. It is the cause. Mind. This mind is the reason that you consider this body as a me. And the resultant attachment with the body and the other objects, such as the place of dwelling. With this misconception, the mind interacts with the outer world through the senses. So see, these senses and mind. These senses and mind are the ones which are creating this very strong attachment to the body and the house and the family and the near dear ones. It's like if the body dies, that's the one point where the relations and attachments will go temporarily from those respective people or that body. But as long as the senses and the mind are there, this body of yours would seem to be as me and mine. Naturally it will happen. I am distinct from the Manomaya kosha. How does one realize this? Equipped with the tendencies of anger, desires, etc., mind is prone to being undisciplined and is thus subject to modifications and change. I am non-changing. I am not subject to any change. I simply witness all the modifications that occur in the mind. Therefore, I am not the Manomaya kosha and it's not mine. It constitutes a subtle body. I am the knower, Atman, who is distinct from it. In this manner, know that Manomaya kosha and I are distinct. Now, mind creates. Mind, manev manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayu. Mind is the one which will cause all the bondages, and know it, mind will be the one which will cause the liberation also. Presently it is the mind which is creating these desires and greed and lust and attachment. But when the mind is sleeping in the deep sleep, where are the desires and where are the afflictions and where are the prejudices and where is the hatreds? Nothing. It's just all gone in the darkness. So our mind is actually which is making us believe that this world is true and making believe that this body is me. And like a witch, it is hypnotizing you. And now you consider mind as me, hence all the desires and greed and ego and lust, etc. in the mind is seen to be as if it is in you. It is in mind, but mind, association with me, it transfers all this into me. And I foolishly, because of the ignorance, consider, I have this desire. I want to experience this. I want to be queen of world. I want to be an IAS officer. I want to be an engineer, a doctor. I want to be a rich party-going lady. I want to be this. I want to be that. Now all the wants are in the mind, not in Atman. But because of this imposition which mind creates, we think it is in me. Hence, all the deformities of mind and body are seen to be in myself. And that is which brings all the misery and sufferings. If you can dissociate yourself from the mind, then mind becomes powerless. As I've said, Uparam is that you have all the objects of indulgences around you, and yet you see it as futile too. There is this whole buffet of food in front of you to eat, and yet you don't eat for the lure of the food, and you eat for what would be good, nutritious, sufficient for the system. So you have all these, I don't want to go into names of the things, you will be drooling like a dog then. So it's a whole buffet of food is there, and you go towards a lighter vegetable or moong dal or something like that, and you say, no, this is good for me. If I eat light, I'll digest it within 2 to 3 hours, and then by 5 hours I can sit down and do my japam. If I eat like a pig, then I'll be sleeping like a donkey. you become an animal. When you eat senselessly, again, I am recalling that incident of that obese girl who was thrown by her family in that naturopathy center. One day, she usually was always sad and miserable and cranky. But this day, she was happy and she laughingly comes to me and she said, "Oh, you know, Swamiji," I was addressed those days, Swamiji. She said, "I was sleeping and in my dream I saw Dr. Gupta, you know, the head, who was like a Hitler over there, who would just very, boisterously, he would reprimand everybody for being sick and for being, whatever conditions. They said it's your indiscipline which has made your body. So he had a very harsh tone. And she says, I had a dream that Dr. Gupta is going room to room with the tray of cutlets. And he's saying, eat. And he has a tray filled with gulab jamun. And he's saying, eat. And she said, when I woke up, my whole pillow was wet with the saliva, which I must have been drooling for God knows how much time. She said, but whatsoever it was, such a fantastic dream. Such a fantastic dream. So this poor girl was being given another small, very interesting, because I too was following the naturopathy diet and there was no eatery around it. So all the attendants of the patients would be also given food there, and their food was pathetic. It was not even, eatable. Not delectable, should I say. It was not delectable at all. So one day Hari comes to me and he says, oh, this evening they are serving soup. I said, okay, nice. I said, at least you will get something nicer to drink here. And he was so happy, I'll get soup. And then he went to that kitchen to get, for me it was the masambi. So 4 masambis for me. And he was holding a thing and his face was something. So what happened to him? He was red with anger. And he said, they had this lauki which was just in a pool of water, and they just dunked a mug and took out that water and poured and said, this is the soup. But that's not soup. Now he was thinking, I'll get tomato soup. Or, mushroom soup or pumpkin. Now he's thinking on those lines. And he must be, thinking about those, the bread rolls and the butter which comes along with it. And there they gave him the ghee, the lauki. He was very upset. But then, that's the story of every mind. And that's the story. So what I also want to intend to you to understand is, it's not easy to be with me. Because not every time you will be getting a delectable food. Sometimes it can be this kind of conditions also. So I was there by choice and he was there by his choice, true. But whatever was, coming the way, he had to lap that up. So our mind creates these miseries. Why? Because the mind has the greed. And to satiate the senses, all the 5 senses. In Prāṇamaya kosha, the senses are of action. Right? But in Manomaya, it is the cognitive senses. So our mind is always looking for satisfaction by the cognition of the senses. Hence, this is what is making people go upset. Like, when you crave for that sense of touch, this is like the mom is patting the head, the father is patting your head and saying those nice words to you, which your ears love to hear. And then this is your spouse or your boyfriend or girlfriend, giving you a hug, and that warm hug, and your body is craving for that, and that's why you're miserable. So the mind is very happy when the senses are happy, But if one sense becomes the reason of, say, the death of your gross body, oh, you don't want that stuff. You don't want that stuff. Whatever that might be.